You're not going to believe what happened in the middle of Lincoln High's hallway that Friday afternoon. By the time it was over, the entire school was staring, mouths open, phones recording, and the bullies who thought they'd humiliate a cheerleader were sprawled on the ground, clutching their ribs. And the craziest part? She didn't even break a sweat. Emily Carter had always been the bright spark of Lincoln High's cheerleading squad, long blonde ponytail, contagious laugh, and a smile that seemed unshakable. But smiles can be a mask, and Emily knew how to wear hers well. Beneath the bubbly persona was a girl who spent every weekend in the back of her dad's martial arts dojo, sparring, sweating, and learning how to fight from a man who had spent 10 years in the military. Her father, Jack Carter, wasn't just a soldier, he was a combat instructor who had trained people to survive in the harshest conditions. And he had one rule for Emily. You never start a fight. But you finish it if you have to. For most of her high school life, Emily didn't have to use what she'd learned. She kept her head down, smiled through snide remarks, and threw herself into cheer practice. But that all changed the week Lincoln High's football team lost their biggest game of the season. The anger needed a target, and the mean girls of the school, led by Madison Price, decided Emily would be the perfect one. Madison's logic was twisted. Emily was captain of the cheer team was part of the game day spirit, and since the game went horribly, Emily was responsible. At first, it was subtle. Side comments in the hallway. Snickers when she walked past. Then came the more public taunts, mocking her cheers, mimicking her high kicks in an exaggerated, clownish way. But on Friday, they took it too far. Emily had just finished helping a freshman pick up the books he dropped when Madison and her crew appeared at the far end of the hallway. Phones were already out. Emily recognized the gleam in their eyes. This was going to be recorded. Madison stepped forward with a sneer. Hey, Carter, do a flip for us. Show us how useless cheerleading is. Laughter rippled through the crowd gathering around. Emily could feel dozens of eyes on her. Madison kept going, each insult sharper than the last, calling her a pom-pom princess, saying she was too dumb to even get into community college, and even mocking her late mother, who had passed when Emily was just 10. That was the line. Emily's smile faded. She stood up straight, her posture suddenly different, shoulders squared, head high, eyes locked on Madison. The shift was so subtle that only her dad, if he'd been there, would have recognized it. You think you're funny? Emily asked, her voice calm. I know I am, Madison shot back, smirking for the cameras. Emily stepped forward, closing the gap between them. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't threaten. She simply said, My dad taught me something. Want to see it? Madison laughed, right up until Emily moved. In a single fluid motion, Emily sidestepped Madison's shove, hooked her foot behind Madison's ankle, and swept her to the ground. Gasps erupted from the crowd. Madison scrambled to her knees, red-faced, and lunged at Emily, only to be blocked, her wrist twisted harmlessly but firmly until she dropped her phone. One of Madison's friends tried to jump in. Emily pivoted, using the girl's own momentum to guide her into the lockers with a controlled shoulder push. She never struck with anger, only precision, just as her father had drilled into her. Within 30 seconds, Madison and her two sidekicks were on the floor, groaning, while Emily stood untouched. The hallway was dead silent except for the sound of heavy breathing. Then, from somewhere in the back, someone started clapping. It spread, slowly at first, then building into a roar of applause and cheers. Emily didn't stay to bask in it. She just picked up her bag, slung it over her shoulder, and walked toward the exit. But as she passed Madison, she leaned down and whispered, "You never know who's been trained for combat." That night, the video hit social media and exploded. The comments weren't about the fight, but about how Emily handled herself, with control, without rage, and without crossing the line. She became a quiet hero, especially to students who'd been bullied for years. Her dad, when he saw the clip, didn't praise the takedowns. He just smiled and said, "You remembered the rule. You finished it." Emily Carter wasn't just another pretty face in a cheer uniform. She was the captain of the Lincoln High cheer squad, top of her class in English, and one of those rare people who could light up a whole room just by being in it. She had the kind of energy that made you think, she must have it so easy. What nobody saw was the other side of her life. Every Saturday and Sunday morning, while most of her friends were still sleeping, Emily was in the back of her dad's martial arts dojo. Her father, Jack Carter, wasn't just a dojo owner, he was a former military combat instructor. He'd served in some of the harshest places in the world, teaching soldiers how to defend themselves when everything else failed. Jack wasn't the overbearing, fight club kind of dad. He taught Emily the way you teach someone to handle fire, with respect and control. "You never start a fight, Em," he'd always say. "But if someone brings it to you, you finish it, fast, clean, and without hate." Scene 2, the first sparks. The trouble started 2 weeks before the incident. The Lincoln High Lions lost their most important football game of the season. The school spirit dropped overnight, and when the players couldn't take their frustration out on the rival team anymore, they needed a new target. That's where Madison Price came in. Madison wasn't on the football team, but she was the queen bee of the school, the kind of girl who had the power to decide who was in and who was out. And once she decided Emily was out, it was like the rest of the school followed suit. It began with whispers. A laugh behind her back. Then came the hallway snickers. Madison and her friends started mimicking Emily's cheers in an exaggerated, ridiculous way. They'd toss imaginary pom-poms and shout, "Go Lions," in fake high-pitched voices. Emily ignored it at first. She'd been taught that attention was fuel for bullies, and if she didn't give them any, maybe they'd get bored. But Madison wasn't the type to get bored, she was the type to escalate. Scene 3, the public humiliation attempt. Friday afternoon, last period, the hallway was crowded with students heading home. Emily had just bent down to help a freshman pick up his books when Madison's voice rang out like a siren. "Hey, Carter! Do a flip for us. Show us how dumb cheerleading really is." Laughter spread instantly. Phones came out. This wasn't just bullying anymore. This was about creating a viral moment at Emily's expense. Emily stood up, her heart pounding. She wasn't afraid, she was angry. But the anger was cold, not hot. Madison smirked, stepping closer. "Oh wait, maybe you can't. Guess those pom-poms don't help you think, huh?" The crowd oohed at the insult. Madison's friends were already recording, circling like vultures waiting for a kill. And then Madison said it. The one thing Emily couldn't let slide. "No wonder your mom left this world early, she probably couldn't stand the embarrassment." Scene 4, the switch flips. The smile left Emily's face. Her posture shifted, shoulders back, chin up, feet set. It wasn't a stance anyone at Lincoln High had seen before, but it was one her dad would have recognized in an instant. "You think you're funny?" Emily asked, voice calm. "I know I am," Madison replied, grinning for the cameras. Emily took one step forward. "My dad taught me something. Want to see it?" Madison laughed, right until Emily moved.